This is Corin Nemec. You are listening to the MacGyver podcast with Mac Jackson.
Hi, I'm Richard Dean Anderson.
Name's MacGyver.
Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
My name is Pratt, Ernest Pratt.
I always get a happy, tingly feeling when I see those guys.
Name one contract that I failed to execute.
MacGyver.
Oh, here we go.
You're a target. And I don't intend to miss.
Over my rotting corpse. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Glowing eyes, cliché behavior, evilness, that kind of thing. Is mental illness contagious? You think?
You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind.
Well, you do have a penchant for pulling brilliant ideas out of your butt. Head. Or your head, when we need them.
Oh, the stuff's already here. I just find a different way to use it.
I like your attitude.
Permission to take a team through the Stargate, sir.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the MacGyver podcast. I'm your host, Mac Jackson. And today we have Corin Nemec returning. Corin is very prolific. Besides doing the movies that you guys enjoy, he's written a book. He produces and you'll hear he put out a rap album that he had done in the 90s with some friends. Unfortunately, we were talking and his phone got disconnected. He was driving at the time. And so we had to do it again, at least the beginning. So we missed maybe 3 minutes of fun chit chat. So we just picked up our conversation. So that's what you're going to hear. Corin was also nice enough to provide the voice of Jonas Quinn so that he could be in a couple of 4 episodes so far of the MacGyver SG-1 audio series. So I am forever thankful for that. He's been very good to me in this podcast, so we're happy to have him back. All right, so everybody settle back and enjoy a lighthearted yet deep conversation with Corin Nemec. So, as I was saying, as I was thanking you for being in the audio series, I wanted to make sure anybody that I bother to do this, I want to make sure it's worth their time. And as you know, one of the only gripes that anybody ever had about the series was the fact that poor Jonas got shoved back through the gate. You know.
Yeah. Well, not shoved, but
no.
But
yeah.
Gently welcomed back through the gate.
Yeah. Well, and my thing was, all right, let's give, besides you and me, let's give the fans, let's fix that mistake. So I had to write it where there's a logical reason for not only Jonas to come back, but for Jonas to stay.
Yeah.
And so that's why I figured, you know what, that planet was pretty much doomed from the moment we met them. So I would think after all the troubles that they had, maybe it was just time to have Jonas walk through and stay on Earth.
Well, I would have liked to have seen more Jonas, but what are you going to do?
Right? I'll tell you. And and that's part of my whole goal is to give people the stuff that we've wanted, and there's no reason to not have more adventures. There's moments in between episodes that we never see. So there's no reason that Jonas can't still be there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Right? I mean, God.
Yeah.
So I was able to squeeze out of the lines that you did for me. I got 4 episodes done. So I figured that was the way to do it. Like, I wrote it beforehand. And while I was waiting for you to send them, I wrote 2 more. And I thought, all right, send him what I have. And that ought to last me a little while so I don't have to bother him.
It's perfect. I was glad to finally get it done.
Did you like them? Were you happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it turned out very well. I applaud your accomplishments.
Thank you, sir. It's a lot of work. I mean,
I know.
you know, from all the avenues that you go down, if you're passionate about it, you don't mind that it's a lot of work, because the payoff
No,
is
of course not.
it's in the final product.
Yeah, 100%.
Which reminds me, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate how diverse you are in your talents, because you wrote a book.
Yeah. I published one. I was inspired to write it because I've had some opportunities to teach recently. Not anything too heavy. Just some small workshops, things like that. But it did inspire me to potentially want to teach and have an actual brick and mortar location, for a workshop, continuing to teach the method that my teacher taught me, Manu Tupo, which is the new era acting technique. And it's a very well thought out, very detailed, very creative, very spiritual acting technique that changed my life completely for the better. And so I wanted to write a book that that gave you a quick trip to the end of the line of the where what the ultimate goal of the new era acting technique was, which was the name of the book is uh, creating a character for the stage or life.
Mhm.
And that's what the new era acting technique was trying to get us to not rely on our own personalities so much, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
and to even be brave enough to distance ourselves and even let go of our own personalities and the need for a personality and the need for our personal character. Because if you have a soulful nature and you're a spiritual being, then other people will perceive a character, other people will perceive a personality. But it's not something, it will be something that just organically comes out of you, not something that's put on or you know um like a disguise, you
I
know
was
what I
gonna say, like
mean?
cliche, like
So
yeah.
so yeah, so in essence, it kind of keeps you loose from being too compartmentalized in your own mind, or keeps me loose enough to be not too compartmentalized in my own mind, where I can't step outside of myself far enough to become another character.
Sure.
Fully embrace another character, and an accent, a cadence, physical mannerisms, or whatever, all of the things that go along with it. It becomes, at least in the new era acting technique, at least philosophically, it becomes easier if you're not so attached to who I think I am.
Sure.
You know what I mean? If I'm a little looser about that, so.
I think it's about not being afraid to possibly look foolish. Would you say that's accurate?
100%. Yeah, you definitely have to be willing to take chances because, especially with kind of more character acting, because that's like, there's different levels of character acting, and it's all really script based, and also thematic, meaning, what is the director, what are the producers, what are they trying to do with this movie? What is the end goal of this movie? If it's a Lifetime movie, then I already know that they don't want anything too far out. They just don't, So as an actor, I want to go in and develop a very believable, wholesome character, whatever, or interesting, whatever the character is, but keep it keep it balanced in a way that isn't, like, wow, what was that, but
Sure.
like, for instance, the film that just came out that I'm in with Heather Graham and Tom Hopper, Place of Bones,
Mm.
the character I play in that, Austin Calhoun, it's a 100% completely immersive character that's um I mean, obviously there's always similarities to ourselves when we create
Sure.
characters as actors. I'm assuming, but it's so different. It was great. It was one of the most fun times I've had playing a character in a long time.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring that up because one of the things I noticed this from you back, I mean, even do when I saw you in The Stand. The Stand was the first time I saw you since Parker Lewis, I think. And I went, oh, wow. Okay, wow, good for you, because it didn't feel like we were watching Parker Lewis. Like you thankfully are able to do that with your acting, where I don't feel it's Corin pretending he's a monster, like, Rotten Tail or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Like I don't feel like, oh, okay, you could tell that's him under all that makeup. No, you have the wonderful gift of making us forget who we're watching. And
That's
in this,
that's the
right?
goal. That's the goal, man. If I can, and also, I was talking to my a good friend of mine last night, actually, who I've known since I was a teenager. He was a young actor, a guy named Robert Gavin, and he went on to do a bunch of stuff in the whole different realm of the world and became very successful. But he was mentioning the fact that, because we were talking, basically we were talking about the fact that most of the TMZ stuff, most of the Picks and Pans stuff, most of the stuff you see in Us Magazine and Weekly and blah blah blah, whatever the things are, it's all set up. You know what I mean? The dates are set up. Where they're at the beach is set. All the things, it's all set up, and it's like, you kind of, and I was prey to that when I was doing Parker Lewis, especially. They had set me up on some dates with this actress or this model or other things and whatever. And as a young actor, I was like, hey, that's cool, but and then this photo shoot, that photo shoot, and wear these clothes and pose like this and do this, and and after a while of that, I just felt like I was losing myself. That's why getting into Manu's class was so important for me after Parker Lewis as well, was to get back into a real acting workshop and remind myself what I started doing it for in the first place, But, and that's also when I realized that game, though it benefits the career in some sense, because your notoriety is always out there and you're always playing that game and always trying to interact with the global media, and I just find it to be a shallow pursuit, so just being a working actor has been good enough for me. I haven't had the same level of mainstream success in the sense of what I did when I was doing Parker Lewis, but I have to say at the same time, like I mentioned, I haven't engaged in the attempt to get back into that type of spotlight, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you
I
really
just
did give
I
up on
just want to be a working actor.
right.
Yeah, I don't want to sell myself. I just want to be a working actor. It's as
And
simple
you
as
know
that.
what? You can tell the people that are getting all the attention now. Well, you know that you're a cog in a machine, and if you don't do, say, what you did, which is so smart, and I feel the same way. There was a time where I remember making the decision, all right, if I'm going to act or be a musician or whatever, all these things that I'm doing, I can go to New York, I can go to LA, I could really, really do that. And I had that same type of moment where I thought, you know what? I don't want to lose myself, and I don't want to lose my connections to my friends and family. And I know that you have to change. I mean, unfortunately, for the worse, I think, like you're saying, where you become disconnected from reality. Like there's people
There's that danger for sure.
right?
If you're crafty, if you're really crafty, I guess you can figure out a way to artfully use that method of shining a light on yourself in some way of, I don't know, some more artistic way. I just don't know if that whole platform of media is even interested in an artistic way. Like,
Sure.
oh, look at this mural this guy's painting. Oh, look at this, sculpture this guy's doing. Oh, look at this, song this guy just, whatever the case may be. They just want to see you in a bikini on the beach or drunk at a bar, or they don't want to see anything cool or hip or unique or inspiring. So I don't know, even if I tried to do it that way, my approach, they'd be like, eh.
Well, and you know what? And I think, and I'm sure you agree, I think you have to get mentally to the point where you go, I don't care if the world is going to go, woohoo! It's about you. It's about your creative output. It's about feeling successful within yourself. And hopefully the right people will notice. Like when you do write a book, write a movie, produce, there's those of us that go, oh, okay, so he's not just Parker Lewis or Jonas Quinn. He's,
Right.
And I think it's the audience that really, it depends on who you care, whose opinion you care about most. You care about the producers and the machine that's going to want to see the girl in the bikini, or you get the more, the more centered people who go, you know what, there's more to Corin than just, he's not a one-trick pony.
Yeah, well, that's the path that I set out on in the late '90s, was to become more of a writer, producer, and actor, of course, and gravitate towards directing at some point. I just don't want to. I directed a lot. I directed pretty much all. I was the technical director on all the episodes of Starving, the web series that David Faustino and I created together for Sony Television back in 2005 or whatever it was, and I just found that jumping back and forth from behind the camera to in front of the camera and this, that, it stretched me. It stretched me too thin, and I would rather direct and not be in a project at all. I'd rather not act in it. I'd rather just direct. But I haven't, in the films that I have produced, it's been a requirement of the film for me to be acting in it as well, because that's helping to get the financing, and so and so and so on and so on. And I'm not an I don't believe myself to be much of an egoistic type of a person, so I'm happy to let a talented director direct,
Sure.
and take that and let him take care of it or her take care of it, because it's less for me to do, less money in my pocket, but less for me to do, which
And
is
also
more time in my pocket.
you sleep better at night too.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
I mean, there have been projects that I've been on that you're right. You're either going to do this really, really good or this really, really focused, but you can't do both, because then they both kind of suffer and you don't feel like you gave it enough time on either end.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But
Uh,
writing and producing and acting is fine. That doesn't because as a producer, I'm generally on the creative side of things. I'm not in the production office line producing or UPMing or but I am involved in location scouting and casting and that kind of side of things. But once we get into to principal photography, my job is mainly an on-set producer,
sure.
and that's to problem solve on set, figure out what we got to do to get our day, and that I can do while I'm acting, because I've been acting for so many years. That's what I'm doing anyway. When I'm sitting off to the side minding my own business, I'm calculating in my mind, either how well the day is going and how blown away I am by, how the day has been moderated, and or I'm sitting there going, who on earth is in charge of this machine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And trying to solve problems. So it's great to be able to have a voice in that as a producer, because I think that if you can solve a problem creatively, even if it's a small budget, it benefits the movie.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I know exactly what you mean, because it does. I find it too with music. Like if you play with other people, it energizes you to keep like, all right, good, we did this. Let's keep going. I know I was only supposed to do such and such, but I'm motivated to create more. And when you're on set, you're like, okay, yeah, I know, but what if we did this? And ooh, I love that. Anything on the creative end, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm contributing to the world in a positive way.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more.
Right. So we'll segue to this Place of Bones. Tell me about that one.
Place of Bones, man, it's just a magical script. Richard Taylor wrote that is a passion piece for him. It's one of the scripts that all of us writers have sitting on the shelf. It's the one that we have to write, and then the second one we have to write, and the third one we have to write, and okay, now I got a writing job. Now I'm going to write this for that company, and then it's going to get produced or whatever. But here's the 8 projects or the 10 projects, the 20. As the years go by, the stack keeps growing, of the passion projects, because as a writer, we have to tell stories. Otherwise, for me, they eat me up alive. If I don't just go ahead and write the damn thing, if I'm that inspired, I will be thinking about it for years. For years, it'll be chewing me up, and I'll finally just sit down and just knock it out. So I have like 28 scripts that I've written over the years that nobody's read, but it's fine, because I have ammunition when things finally turn around, and God willing, I'm in a position to start greenlighting things on a quicker, faster pace. Then hopefully I can start producing some of these scripts and bringing them to light. But that said, Place of Bones came about really because of my relationship with David Lipper, who produced it, and he was a producer on a film called Joe Baby with Harvey Keitel, Ron Perlman, Deacon Lockman, a bunch of other great actors, great group. And I had a small role in that. I think it was 4 scenes, all in flashbacks, playing the father of Deacon Lockman, who was a hitman, and some of the scenes were barely a page long, some were a page and a half, some were a quarter page, some were, some they were really, but I found a character in there that made those scenes bigger than they were scripted as being. There was something more that happened there that was unexpected, and David Lipper really appreciated that. You know, and then when he got the go ahead on Place of Bones, they were looking for the guy to play Austin Calhoun, and I just kept popping up in his head, and he recommended me to Audrey Cummings, the director, and then they spoke with Heather Graham about it. Tom Hopper seemed to be okay with whatever David and Audrey, were okay with, and because he's an executive producer on it, so he had to have a say.
Sure.
And Heather Graham, obviously, it was very important for her because it's mostly me and her on screen together, So I auditioned for Audrey and Heather, via Zoom, and had a creative discussion with them, and with David Lipper's earnest support, he pushed it over the finish line and got me the job. So it was honestly, if this had been a studio project, it would have been Ethan Hawke or Stephen Dorff, or someone else would have gotten this role if it had been a studio project. But because it was an indie film, David Lipper had the ability to take the 2 leads that he had. That was what got him the financing, which was Tom Hopper, Heather Graham, and they said, okay, cool, we'll finance it. So he didn't need to worry about the third lead.
Sure.
To secure the money, and that gave him the creative freedom to cast whoever he wanted. Really, I mean, not without Audrey Cummings' support and Heather Graham's support, of course. But if this had, it was a godsend that I got this job, because just like the coincidence of how I got the stand, that Mick Garris. I had auditioned for Mick Garris years before for Sleepwalker, and he loved me for it, but I wasn't physically right for it, and he just was chewing on me for years. And when that audition came up, he told Stephen King that he had the actor for it, even though he didn't look like the character. He believed that I could play the character, and after they auditioned in 5 different cities all across the U.S. trying to find an actor that fit the character description and could play the role, they gave up. And finally, Steven said, okay, Mick, bring Corin in. And I went in and did the audition. He was like, okay, I believe you. And they gave me the part. So it's one of those opportunities where you got to shine. You got to come with it. You got to come with your A game. And with Austin Calhoun and Place of Bones, which technically is a classic Western, but it's also a thriller. It's also a horror, and it also is an action. Not so much an adventure, but an action and a drama, and has some wonderfully comedic moments that break the tension that come out of the organic situational, dynamics of the characters and how they're behaving off of one another, and so I really equate the movie to being a combination of Misery, Hateful Eight, and
Sure.
Sixth Sense. Because
Okay.
what makes it a horror is this twist at the end, this kind of horrifying twist that you don't really realize what's been going on the whole time underneath the understory.
Yeah.
There's an understory that just is so well hidden for the most part that 90+% of the audience that's watched it in earnest has been completely taken by surprise at the twist, and that's what the whole movie is about, and that's why it's kind of an avant-garde sort of cinema verde type of a film too. Sort of like Hateful Eight was this long walk for a short drink.
Sure.
It needs that quick, a shocking ending and wrap up in order for you to look back at what you just watched for the last 90 minutes and go, oh my God, how did I not get it? You know what I mean?
I
And
love
that's
those.
the impact that it's going for. And some people have criticized that, like, oh yeah, well we should have known the whole time. And it's like, there's my point. Look at the impact. Is that you're so enturbulated by the way it ended that you're spastic about it. So it worked. You know what I mean? Whether you're complaining about it or whatever, the ending worked. So I recommend everybody going to see it, and most people will probably want to watch it twice. And if you do see it and you do enjoy it, share it without giving away the ending. It's a wonderful film. The cinematographer, Andres Secula, who was the cinematographer for Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, shot it. It's beautifully shot. The costume is wonderful. Um, Everything is really well done in this film, and you wouldn't know that it was an indie film. It feels like a studio feature for sure. It's that well done. I haven't seen a Western. Actually, I mean, Hateful Eight and Django would be the two more recent Westerns that cinematically you could say it's comparative to. But in the history of Westerns, the cinematic style reminds me of The Long Riders, which
Sure.
is one of my all-time favorite Westerns. So I'm very excited about this movie. I wish they had more money in the marketing and promotion of it. But it's an indie film, and they just didn't have as much money as I would love to them have had. So it's going to be up to you guys, the viewers and the users, to leave user ratings and to leave messages on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and whatever other platforms, telling people to check it out. It's up to the people at this point to enjoy it and share it.
And that's what social media is for. Like, you post something, I repost it. That took no effort, and it could mean the world. You know what I mean? If
I
people
know some people are so lazy about the repost button.
right? All you have to click. That's it. You're good. You're a
They're
hero
like, I'm not going to give him my repost. Ew,
now. Ooh. And you
ew, he doesn't.
and you, as always, have been very supportive of all of my projects, which I always appreciate too.
I try to be. I try to be supportive of everybody, really. I mean, I know how it is out there in the grind of life in general. So I think that if a lot more of us can be less self-obsessed, and less tied to our own anchors, meaning our own ideas of what's so important, like our politics, our, yeah, religious values are important, but you can have religious values without being angry at everybody else who has different religious values that are basically almost identical to your
Basically
own,
the
but
same
just in
darn
a
thing.
different, you know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
and it's just how do we start bridging these gaps? Because it's oddly enough, I was expecting after the crossover of the year 2000, Obama being, sworn into office twice, you would assume that we had achieved some pretty miraculous
A new level.
goals here in terms of, of our cultural evolution. And for whatever reason, the system as it is right now doesn't want us to accomplish that kind of unity, because the system as it exists right now can only exist if we are against each other. It's the
Mhm.
only way it can exist,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a corrupt system, and the corruption needs division in order for us to not recognize where the real corruption is,
Yeah.
and have our own personal aha moment about things, and then we can point out who the real enemy is, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's I try to, thinking about, all right, how you and I, how are we going to affect the world? Well, our children. If, I'm trying to lay the groundwork and make sure my children understand that, even you're saying about religion, I explain to them because they go to a Catholic school. And depending on the teacher, some of them are old school, no, we're only doing it our way. And I very early on explained to them about religion is a man-made thing of us all trying to understand our relationship with God. So,
Totally.
right, when you have different religions, that doesn't mean they're our enemy. That's just different people trying to come to the
Exactly.
same place. And if you pay attention,
Yeah.
right? And if you pay attention, we're all basically the core of good value is all the same. It's just the little minutia where people decide to go off on their own. That's why, the Jewish people, well, we still believe in all the things that the Jewish people do, but we've added on. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they have their own
Right.
way of going about it. So,
Totally, man.
having the tolerance and the love for different cultures and religions, and it makes all the
Well,
difference.
how boring, yeah. Yeah, how boring a planet would it be with only one culture, one religion, one, system,
Oh yeah,
one whatever. I mean, how unbelievably boring would that be? The beauty of our world today is in our differences. I celebrate the differences that I see out there.
yes, that's
I don't
exactly
want
it.
to see I don't want to see the Italian culture become Americanized. I don't want to see, you know what I mean? I don't want to see the French become Spanish. I don't want to see the Mexicans become Canadians. I
Right.
don't want to see the Japanese become Chinese, or the Chinese to become Japanese. I love them all for exactly what they are, and for the cultural um, uh, diversity that's brought to the table with each one of them. If everything becomes blended into one gobbledygook, it's just a milk toast kind of grayish blob of what?
Yeah.
It's in the diversity that of our cultures, and our religions, and our nationalities, and our racial differentiations, and all of that. It's a beautiful thing, because I myself see myself as a spiritual being first and foremost, that happens to inhabit a body that happens to be Caucasian. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? That's as far as it goes. This
Right.
is this is my body. I own it for this lifetime. I inhabit it in this lifetime. It's as much as a prison as it is a release from prison. But if I looked around and I saw that everybody looked exactly like me, I'd go crazy. I'd lose my mind. I'd become a lunatic
Sure.
if everybody looked the same, and behaved the same, and acted the same, and all of the things, sounded the same. And, I tell this story. One of the coolest things I ever experienced was when I was over in Wales, and I was at this Irish bar, and this Japanese dude that was raised in Belfast with this crazy thick Irish accent came up to the bar and started ordering drinks, and I was like, what? A Japanese dude with the thickest, craziest Irish accent I've ever heard. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I got to talk to you. Let's go sit down and talk. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know, and that, yeah, and so it's in that, you know, that blending of the worlds that we find all of our interests in. If I find myself blocking people out because, you know, the only people that I block out of my life are criminals, liars, cheats, deceivious individuals, people who are low on the totem pole when it comes to personal ethics.
Mhm.
You know, I surround myself with people who value morality, and who value humankind, and who value good behavior, and being a gentleman and a scholar at the same time. And that's what I try to, you know, surround myself with, and I try to hopefully return in kind that same inspiration to my friends that I spend time with.
Yeah, and you know, you may do the same thing. I always try to remember to do a little mental check-in to say, all right, wait a minute, here's a new issue that the world has thrown in front of me. How do I feel about it, and why do I feel that way? And when it comes to like cultural differences, you know, I think, all right, am I prejudiced on this one issue? Let me think. And you know what I found about myself? Something that I never thought of. No, if anything, I get envious because it's a new culture, and I'm like,
Yeah, sure.
I want to. Can I dive into that world for just a little bit? You know, can I sit with you folks? And I have to sit back and go, phew, okay, all right. I think that's the side of the spectrum I would like to be on. You know,
Yeah, man, you know, so-called cultural appropriation is one of the greatest compliments you can ever give to any other culture. You know, if you go to Ethiopia and you fall in love with Ethiopian food, and you come back to America and you open up a traditional Ethiopian restaurant and learn how to make, you know, the traditional food, and then you find some locals who are from Ethiopia or have some connection with it or whatever else, and they come together and you create a restaurant together, and you have this. What's wrong with that? Now suddenly you're making people recognize that here's this country that most people are relatively unfamiliar with, that has an incredible cuisine, that has a very, you know, interesting palate to it, and now you're spreading the love. You're not like,
right,
oh yeah,
right,
I'm stealing your culture and now I'm going to go make money off of you. That's
right.
such a weird way to look at it, you know?
Yeah, it is. I tell the kids all the time. I said, you know, I hope you realize how lucky you are that you are. Because when I was growing up, I had 5 meals to choose from during the week with my parents because my father had no tolerance for anything spicy or, you know, anything that looked weird. So once I was out of the house, give me, you know, Indian food and Chinese and Japanese and anything. I'll try anything. And
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
when we had kids, well, that's all they had too. So they, you know, oh, are we having Indian tonight? And I said, you know, I didn't have this growing up. I hope you realize how lucky you are that this isn't strange to you, you know, and I hope that
Totally.
they take in that sort of like lust for life oh, what's that? I've never had that. Like, that's the way to be.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Couldn't agree more. So, you know, I mean, I just try to keep it light. There's enough pressure in the world today with everything to that I don't think it's healthy for us to put added pressure on ourselves on top of it all. You know, loosen up, relax. You know, be funny. I was talking to my buddy the other day. He said that he's got this guy at his work that is just a complete jerk off. Every time he walks in, he harshes his gig. It makes him in a bad mood. I said, listen, dude, make it part of your game. Enjoy his bad mood. Like, enjoy it. Like, go in and like really, really, like tomorrow, go in and really enjoy it. And don't let it harsh your gig. Like when you're going for a coffee, Ask him if he wants a coffee. Kill him with kindness. You know
Sure.
what I mean? And enjoy and go. And if he's like in an old grumpy mood, go, there he is, old Grumpster Grumps again. You're my favorite grumpy person in the world. You know that, don't you? I love you. I'm going to get you a coffee. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And play it
Yeah.
that way. And he was like, oh, and he went to work the next day. Great day. Had a great day. He actually had a laugh out of the dude at one point. You know what I mean? And
You're absolutely right.
so
You have to be in
you
control
know,
of you is really what it is. You can't control others. You're in control of you. So if you can just like go, okay, yeah, that's who you are. All right. And like you said, I love
yeah.
the whole idea of putting your arm around and saying, I love you. How do you not love that?
I know, man. And then if he's like, hey, get off me, I don't hug. You're my favorite non-hugging guy I've ever met. Instead of being offended by it, everybody's so easily offended, you know?
Yep.
It's
And quick to
such a,
anger.
yeah. It's tough, man. Jumping onto another subject though, because oddly enough, all of this kind of talk is sort of aligned with it. Another film that I have coming out very soon is called I Feel Fine, and
Oh,
it's
yeah. I
about
saw the trailer for that.
it's
That
about a
looks
kid
great.
who has suicidal OCD, which I don't even like talking about the subject. Suicide as a subject in general is just very tough one for me. I've never had issues with it myself or anything like that. It's just such a diabolical condition for someone to have where you can't even trust yourself in life. You know, the world is dangerous enough uh, as it is uh, to not be able to trust that even you yourself are going to protect yourself.
Yeah.
That it's a terrifying concept that I can't get my head around. But it's a family that's dealing with that, with a teenager who's suffering from, this condition, which I apparently is a real thing. I'm not, the scholar on it, but it's a condition where a kid has a obsessive compulsive disorder centered around suicidal tendencies and thoughts, and they don't even have any they're not depressed, they're not in any other way that you would notice suicidal. It's just something in their mind. They can't get the idea of death out of their head as a fixation, and it's a frightening thought for me. And it's a movie that the Spicers made. Austin and Haley Spicer, a married couple who wrote and directed the film, produced the film along with the Scatter brothers down here in Florida. We shot it up in West Virginia, but a very very touching, very tough movie to watch. I won't talk about it too much more because it's one that you have to see really and decide for yourself. I myself have seen it twice, and it's tough for me to watch because I
Oh,
have
yeah.
I have a kid that's young, and just the mere thought of having to deal with something like that is painfully frightening. It makes me very anxious. So it's because I love my kids so much, and I love everybody else's kids so much, and I wouldn't want for any parent to ever have to not outlive their kid, to outlive their kids. It's just that's not how we ever imagine it to be. If I can, if whether my relationship with my kids is the best that it could be or not on my deathbed, at least I'm dying before them.
Right.
I,
Right.
I will be happy enough to know that I'm dying before my kids. That's enough for me to go to the grave with my head held high, because I want my kids to live a full life like I've been blessed so far. At this point in my life, to still be going, to still be able to see all of this wonderful opportunity and potential ahead of me. And because I don't just act and produce and write. I have all kinds of other schemes I'm up to with business partners, so and nonprofits and everything. I'm working with my buddy Jason Huff, who is also I'm doing some film and TV stuff with as well. He's working on doing a show uh, for Lightning Girl, the Lightning Girl, which was an old comic book from like the 30s or 40s or something that he's now turning into a series, which I'm excited about working with him on. But we also have a thing called Urban Liberal Arts Foundation that we've put together in pitch deck form at this point, and we have the 501c3 established, but it's a nonprofit film and television academy. But for the idea is basically like a I forget the term for it now. Why, I don't know why I'm forgetting the term for it, but where you actually you take a film and you teach people how to make a film by making the movie. A trade school. I'm sorry, it's a trade school for film and television. So we would take somebody's small budget, they would donate it to ULAF. So they donate the budget to us, meaning they get a write-off on it. And then we would take a bunch of students where all of our department heads would be professionally trained with Hollywood credits. And then they would have underneath them would be, apprentices. And then they would learn how to make a movie by making a movie. And in the end, we would deliver whatever that movie turned out to be, to the not back to the investors, but to the distribution entity that's established to put the movie out. And therefore, in a roundabout way, the investor then stands a better chance, or the one who donated the money stands a better chance of actually seeing some return on the investment, because they are getting a write-off on the budget.
Sure.
So that's another thing that we're working on, and I have a friend that moved to Bolivia a while back, and we're working on importing artisanal fruits and coffees and honeys and all of that from Bolivia right now, and then exporting to them used auto parts, which is what's so needed over there. They can't afford new auto parts. They want used auto parts. So, so that's another thing that I'm working on right now. We've been working on it for 2 years now, but we're doing great on it. We've got great connections down there in Bolivia, and things are going good. And then another scheme that I can't even talk about because someone will steal it. That has to do with a digital platforming type of thing. So, there's other stuff that I'm scheming on the side. I don't. And then I'm here at my friend's. It will be a new coffee shop, beer and wine place at some point called Bel Air Coffee. And I'm doing, because I do murals. I'm a graffiti artist, and I do murals and logo work and stuff like that. So I'm here working on the logo for the exterior of the coffee shop. Wow. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to do a mural for them of like a coffee plantation on the side of the building in their outdoor seating area. So, I'm always up to stuff, dude. The hustler extraordinaire.
Just for your soul alone, that's got to feel so rewarding when your pillow hits, or your head hits the pillow at night. You go, no, I'm contributing to the world in a good way.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know, whatever. I just gotta keep moving. I gotta keep it moving. I gotta stay artistic. I gotta stay in the aesthetic band, because when I fall short from living my life in the aesthetic band, I get crushed into this real dialectically materialistic environment, a psychological environment that we exist in currently, and it's a very uncomfortable place for me to be. So I need to stay creative and stay in that place, because that's my happy place. And when I get out of that place for too long, I really start to cave in on myself, and I start to really feel the weight of the universe, and that weight gets lifted off of me when I'm doing creative things.
Yeah, and for me, I'm the same way, and I'm so many irons in the fire that the thing that bothers me is that one thing that I haven't moved forward on for whatever reason. Like right now, I'd like to finish an album. Well, I don't have the money to rent a studio, but I bought this thing for the computer to like do it yourself, at least, put tracks into the computer. I can't figure out how to make the program work. So that kind of nagging at me. I got the podcast, I got the audio series, but that album is still going, move forward. Like you said, your pile of scripts. Yeah, let's come on.
Yeah,
Let's get
totally.
some progress going on that. And it until it
Yes,
happens, it drives
it's true. It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that because the album thing I did, when I was a teenager, I was really into the hip hop scene and all of that, and did a rap album with some buddies of mine called Starship of Fools, which was like a trip hop album in the early '90s. The son of comedian Paul Mooney, Shane Mooney, was in the group along with my buddy Patah Mitchell, who was out of Oakland, a fantastic rapper. He now works for the DA's office up there and does forensic analysis on video footage for crimes, for crime investigations. But we used to be in a rap group together, and Balthazar Getty was one of our main producers and our DJ, and I was one of the rappers in it as well, and we had developed an entire album for Motown New York that never came out, and the rights reverted back to me. So I had the 2-inch reels for years, but never got to digitize them. And like about 6 months or so ago, I found an old old box full of cassette tapes, and sure as shit, all of our music was in there on these cassette tapes, and so I got those digitized, and I put them out on BandLab and SoundCloud under Starship of Fools or whatever. You can go and find it, but it's just some old school hip hop. But I was all these years, no one ever heard the album, no one ever really heard the music we performed, a number of times in the lead up to to doing the album and all of that. So people got to see us, and some people got to hear it, but all these years, it was just one of those things that just used to eat me up. I would just be eaten up. I'm like, no one ever got to hear it. It's such a shame. It's such a, it's a damn shame. And finally I find it. And I'm like, I've had that a huge odd sense of relief even though it's never going to do anything, I have an odd sense of relief that it's finally out there at least,
Right.
the Starship of Fools,
so
it's fun stuff, man. Right? Yeah, man, it's fun stuff. And then the poetry books. Yeah, I was sitting on tons of poetry that I've been writing since I was a teenager, and finally just compiled 3 different books of poetry and published them myself, just like I did with my acting book, and just like I did with So I have 3 books of poetry that are out. If you go to lulu.com and just search Corin Nemec, I published like maybe 11 or 12 of my screenplays just for fun, just so people can read them for the hell of it. And I have 3 books of poetry. I have a novella called Venice High, which is loosely based on my life growing up as a graffiti artist in LA. So it's like a teen angst novella. And then I have the book on acting, so, and then I have a book of some of my street art out there called Paper Chase, that I published under a pseudonym, but that just has a bunch of my street art in it and stuff, and a book of photographs I did of Mickey Avalon, who's a rapper. He's like a trip hop rapper, an alternative rapper who's had a lot of hits over the years, and I did the photographs for his first album and his album release for Interscope Records, and I had a bunch of photographs that they didn't use, so I put all of those out in a photo album book. And I mean, I'm up to all kinds of stuff, man. I'm like, if God forbid anybody did shine a light my way, there'd be a lot of embarrassed people out there feeling like they ain't busy enough. But that said, speaking of busy, we're almost up on an hour, and I got to get back to work here too.
I know. I always try and keep it an hour because I figure people have plans such as yourself, and 2 things I want to ask you about. How do you feel about? I notice in Place of Bones you have to do an accent. I've had to do accents as well, and there's some that I feel even if I do it well, I wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't want to do them in front of somebody from that actual country. You know what I mean? How do you approach that? Because some of the voices I've done on the audio series, I don't have a problem with, but say to do a British accent, I wouldn't want to do that in front of a British person because I'd feel too.
Yeah, man. I did a movie years ago in the late '90s called Foreign Correspondence, where I play a Brit, and I lived that accent, man. I used it offset, onset. I had to keep the cadence.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't that I was being a method actor. I mean, that's kind of methody, but I wasn't like behaving as the character. I was behaving as Corin Nemec with a British accent.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just so that I could keep that, because and there was 3 Brits that were on the film with us. And about 5 days into it, we hadn't really talked much or everything, because they were respecting my space. They were on the G&E department and all of that. About 5 days into it, we're having lunch, and we're sitting at the same table, and they asked me what part of England I was from, and I was like, "Yes!"
Thank God, because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, man. So, and then I went and my dad was living in London at the time, and I went over and visited him shortly after making this movie. And bro, I just straight up went British, man. I was over there for like 3 weeks or so. I just stuck with it. I just lived the accent. It was hilarious.
Once you lock in, I find that too. Once I lock in, it's hard to get out.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Right? But you're like, okay, people are telling me to stop now, and I can't get out of it.
Yeah. And I had to do a Czech accent for an episode of was it CSI Los Angeles? Maybe, I think it was CSI Los Angeles. The Czech accent was a tough one. I worked with a dialect coach for a little bit on it. But I mainly worked with a buddy of mine who was from from Bulgaria. He's from that general region, and there's a lot of Czechs there as well. There's a lot of people who move around. Anyway, he's the one who initially helped me out enough to where I got the audition. I kept talking to him on the phone, and he was like, "No, more like this, a little like that." And I just kept running it with him, on the phone from freaking Bulgaria. He's like, "Listen, Corin, it's 3:45 in the morning. I have to be up at 6. Can this wait?"
Yeah.
But anyway, man. And then when I got the job, they put me with a dialect coach that helped, hone it out and get it solid. And but it's great to do the dialects, because with the dialects comes performative behavior. You know what I mean? That's always awesome. Always awesome. Is how the character actually physically moves and sits, and what's their posture, and all of those things. So,
Yeah.
I just hope to have the opportunity in the years to come to just keep rocking and rolling, and to keep having new projects to get on here and talk with you about.
Honest to God, anytime, of course. The only other question somebody asked reminded me to ask you, and it reminded me when we both commented on Joe Malozzi's Twilight Zone rewatch.
Yeah.
We both mentioned the one that Dean Stockwell was on, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, man.
We worked with Dean Stockwell. How great was he?
Twice. Yeah, twice. I worked with him the first time on Tucker. When I was 12 years old, and I was in a couple of great scenes with him. I didn't have a lot of dialogue in them because it was Jeff Bridges and he, but it was he was a fantastic person to work with. And then working with him on Stargate all those years later, it was just so cool to be able to look over. And I mean, he's been in the business. He was in the business since freaking God, basically. And even being a child actor himself, so for me to go full circle from being 12 years old to 36 when I was doing Stargate, and to still be at it, to be sitting across the camera from him, looking at him going, "Still here," and he's like, "Still here."
Yeah, and he was always very protective of children actors. That was always his thing. He didn't want kids to be forced to do it. He would tell people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no doubt.
Good. All right, I wanted to ask you about that. All right.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. I always appreciate talking to you, and again, I'm forever thankful for your love and support through the years. And
You betcha, brother.
And whenever you have a new project on that you want to shoot the bull. Oh, were you serious about doing podcasts on your own? Was that a real thought, or are you just goofing around?
I have, yeah. I have. I mean, I have tossed the idea around. It's just, it's one of those things that once you commit to it, you gotta kind of ride that horse until the saddle falls off. You know what I mean? And with the schedule of, yeah, sure, I could take it, depending on what type of podcast it was, I could take it on the road with me. But when I get an acting job, man, when I get a serious acting job, you barely even see me on Twitter, Instagram, this, that, the other. I disappear. I can't, like, I'd have to just basically shut down the podcast every time I got a really important job, because I wouldn't spread myself thin and jeopardize a performance so that I could, be on here like, oh, hey, everybody.
Well, if that's the one good thing about podcasts. If it's done on your own, you can do whatever you want when you want. Like I'm doing this.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do.
Yeah,
but I am serious about it. It is something I've been chewing on for a little while now.
Well, if you ever want my 2 cents or help or anything, just reach out and I'll gladly do what I can.
I certainly will, my man. I certainly will.
Well, good luck with the rest of your day. Tell Sabrina I said hi.
I sure will. And you as well, sir.
Absolutely. You have a great rest of your day, and thanks again for the friendship.
You bet, brother. I'll see you on the interwebs.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Cheers, bro.
The MacGyver podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network and made possible by donations to the Forever Adventure Network by Mac Jackson on Patreon. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever podcasts are heard. And follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And remember, stay creative, everyone.
The Forever Adventure Network.
Welcome to the adventure.